Okay, we are. Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar about cephalometric superimposition. We will not talk about pancakes on top of each other, but rather about overlaying several analyses of the same patient on top of each other. There will be no discussion about the purpose of superimposition. Tools which are available in AudaxCeph for easy and automatic superimposition on one side, and also tools for advanced superimposition methods on the other side will be shown. Predefined superimpositions, such as for example the ones proposed by Ricketts, will be shown. We will cover methods for structural superimposition, and we will also show visual superimpositioning. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. We've taken a screenshot of an example of your site interface. You should see something that looks like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right corner. We may change the layout later during the session. Balloons show where font size can be changed. Then window maximized and speaker volume altered on your interface. We may change this layout, as I said before, later during the webinar. We want to hear from you. We strongly encourage you to place questions, comments and requests to us through the chat pane. You have the opportunity to do this by typing them into the chat pane on your bottom left. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect the questions and address them immediately or during the questions and answer sessions at the end of today's presentation. This webinar is being recorded. It will be available a few hours after the end of our session. My name is Peter and I'll be your host today. Marco is sitting here with me and he will communicate to you throughout the webinar via the chat pane, and I will join the conversation later when I am free. But until then I am busy with the presentation. For those of you just joining us, welcome. I would like to reintroduce webinar agenda before going on with the presentation itself. We will make a mix of slides and software presentations and some questions and answers during and after the webinar. I will do one tracing at the beginning. I will start with a tracing of an analysis at the pre-debond stage. I'm not an expert, so do not be harsh with me if some points are not aligned to their structures as they should be. We will continue to automatic superimposition with automatically generated reports. A nice example would also be shown with Ricketts analysis, which you may be familiar with because it's very well described in the literature. The one I'll start with. I will continue the structural superimposition according to Bjork. Another example of structural superimposition would be visual alignment of structures. We'll show the tools and method later. And some measurement tools which are available will also be presented. Of course, there are questions on your site which will remain unanswered. Contact us and we will later contact you and try to answer them. I started software before. I'll choose the patient. I have here two analyses and I'm going to just create another one. I'll first extract the image just in order to show you how this can really be quickly done. I'll select lateral X-ray so that we know that this is a lateral X-ray, and I'm going to create a new analysis. I will use automatic tool for tracing. Switch on report layer. I can do some changes if I'm not satisfied, for example, with this soft tissue, but I'll just do quick adjustments and save the analysis to the document. So I have here a newly created analysis. You can see that it's similar as the first one, and I'm going to create superimposition just by dragging it over the first one. And I have a superimposition document here, together with some reports. For example, SN report. I can copy it and paste to other documents, to Word or to PowerPoint, and you can see that it's vector format, because when resizing, all those curves remain smooth. Now let's go to superimposition. This was automatic superimposition. Everything is quite messy here, and I want to remove all the points. I want to remove all the info boxes, and I can also remove all the planes. So this is the result that we have if I change the situation between different types of links. I can do this by simply clicking on the link. I can also export an Excel of measurements, so I have names of the measurements, units, normal values. And what I have here is the measurement on the first date and the measurement on the second date, so that I can compare these two between each other. Okay, now we'll go back and delete this, and I will later come back to this very patient when showing structural superimposition. I want to continue from here to another patient where I would like to show automatic superimposition in more details. So I have here the first stage, so it's initial stage, and let's say end of the treatment stage. I have one analysis at the initial stage and the second analysis on the final stage. I can immediately know that there is something wrong with the tracing of this teeth, and it's too big, and I want to know how big is actually this molar. So I'm going to open the first analysis and check for the size. So 20 is the length and the width is 10. So when opening the final stage analysis, I can change the length to 20 and the width to 10, and it is like this as it should be. And I'm going to save that, and you can always get this size from either cephalometric image, but it's better to get it from panoramic one. So let's go back. If I want to create a superimposition, I just grab this one and put it on top of the one on the initial stage, and the computer is doing the calculation, and everything's done automatically. So I have here a tracing, I have here the superimposition report 1, superimposition report 2, and so on. and together everything. So I can copy that to clipboard, open Word document and paste it to Word document. Please note that this is vector image, so if I resize that inside Word, all the curves will be smooth, all the lines which are not horizontal and vertical will be smooth, and so on, regardless of the size. Let's go back to our superimposition. Why is this like that? So that this automatically happens, because we predefined that in Ricketts analysis type. It's well known analysis, and what we can do is not only to have measurements but also to predefine the things that are needed for superimposition. Here I have a superimposition definition, and I can see that I have the first report here. So center of cranium and nasion are aligned on both analysis, also nasion as a registration point, and NBA line for a direction, and so on. And we have for each of those links, we have a report. There is also a combined report, so that it's all together put on A4, all four links, and we can have it on one paper, as I did show you before. So it's very easy to do that, and all those superimpositions are done automatically. What if I want to have another superimposition? So I can go to Documents, open the superimposition, which was already created, and I can have different links. So the first one we've seen that is NBA registered at CC, then NBA registered at nasion, anterior nasal spine, posterior nasal spine registered at ANS, and so on. Now I would like to have sela and nasion registered, and so the direction of line would be sela and nasion, and it would be registered at sela point. What I do is I'm going to add a link, but before doing that I need some points to be shown. So I'm going to do it like this. I have both analysis here, and now I'm going to choose link tool. So I have free superimposition, point and rotation around the point, point and point, and point and plane. Point and point is the right choice for us, and I'm going to define elements. Here is sela and nasion, so sela turcica nasion, and on the second radiograph, sela and nasion. I'll use the calibration, assemble them, and fix it at sela, so that sela is aligned on top. Both selas are aligned on top of each other, but there is a little difference in nasion. This error could be due to tracing error, or due to growth, or whatever. Now I'm done, and I can show you here additional superimposition link. So I have now NBA and so on, and the one that we created is sela nasion. Now we will add an image of the patient. We have different tools to do that. I'm just going to place those points, and we can align those points to some prominent points on the profile, or, which is even better, we can use one of those tools here, for example, free option, put the rotation center on tip of the nose and just grab the image and put it inside the superimposition and align that like this. Okay, I can change the radiograph transparency. I can also change properties of other radiographs. For example, the initial color could be blue, and the next color could be, let's say, yellow. So this should be done according to national standards. I can make a snapshot of this here, and this one can be also pasted into other document and cropped and so on. We will continue back to imaginary Mario Daniels. I have two stages, the pre-treatment and pre-debond stage, and each has an analysis which is already traced. I open the analysis from the initial stage, so the one from the beginning of the treatment, and I will explain the structures which are stable so that we can superimpose them. The majority of work is not superimposing itself, but rather to find, recognize and trace these structures correctly. Bad radiograph image is a killer to the process, so forget about tracing or doing structural superimpositions if you need to guess those structures. I give a credit for the knowledge to the book titled Cephalometric Superimposition by Planchet and Dutelot, and to American Board of Orthodontics for various freely available publications. I'm going to switch on stable structures, which I already traced, and bring it closer to us. I will start with anterior wall of cella. This is a stable structure, and if I move along that surface until anterior wall intersects with anterior clinoid process, I come to a point that refers us to the Walker point, and it is stable after 5 to 6 years of age, and serves as the important mark for superimposition. So here we have a point which is called Walker point. As I continue anteriorly along the sphenoid bone, we should note a planum of sphenoidale, which is relatively flat and extends to greater wings of sphenoid, which demarcate the separation of sphenoid and ethmoid bone. So this is greater wings of sphenoid. Continuing beyond the planum and past the greater wings of sphenoid, we should see two lines that diverge. I will move that a little. These two lines, one diverges superiorly and the other diverges inferiorly. The lower line, which is sometimes continuing from planum, is difficult to see, and you can see that I don't know actually where is it. This probably. The superior line represents ethmoidal crest, and this crest should always be visible. It's not very good visible, but okay, here it is, and we'll use that later. The most superior radio-opaque lines that are visible above the ethmoid bones are the cerebral surfaces of the orbital part of the frontal bone. They typically appear somehow disorganized. Certain structures are more important to ensure accurate sagittal orientation, while others are more important for vertically orienting the cranial base superimposition. The primary structure for sagittal orientation are first the contour of anterior wall of sella turcica, and second the greater wings of sphenoid. So these three structures. The primary structures for vertical orientation are first the intersection of anterior wall of sella and anterior clinoid process, so Walker point, this cross section here. And second, the cribiform plate. If the cribiform plate cannot be clearly seen, this is the one, so cribiform plate, cannot be cannot be clearly seen, then ethmoidal crest should be used, so this one. If these structures are not clearly visible, then the planum sphenoidale and cerebral surfaces, planum sphenoidale and cerebral surfaces of the orbital part of the frontal bone should be used, so planum and cerebral surfaces. Regarding the mandible, the entire outline changes during the growth and treatment, and teeth move within the mandible and along the mandible while it is being displaced. In order to accurately superimpose the mandible, you need to be able to rely on structures that do not change over time. It's the same thing as with cranial superimposition or maxillary superimposition. There are the primary and the secondary structures which can be used as well. The primary ones are most important and use them whenever they can be visualized. Secondary structures are used to support primary structures or when the primary structures cannot be clearly seen. Perhaps the most reliable primary structure is the contour of the chin just below pogonium. It's always seen. It can always be seen. The inner contour of cortical plate at the lower border of the symphysis, located at the most inferior aspect of trabecular bone, is another primary structure that is stable. Posteriorly, the mandible is superimposed on the contours of the alveolar canal, which are stable throughout the growth as well. Remember that 4 contours representing left and right canal can be visible. Try to use either 2 most posterior or 2 most anterior contours for both tracings. The secondary structure will be the lower contour of the 3rd molar, but before the root development begins, otherwise we cannot use it. I did not trace that because roots are already developed. There is also, what I would like to show, a coordinate system created for better understanding of superimposition relations. I will open the second analysis from the pre-debond stage and trace stable structures or cranial base. So I will switch off this report, switch on stable structures, and I've already traced before the stable structures on the mandible. Now I will focus on the cranial base. I start with anterior wall of sella. So I choose the silhouette tool and trace this up to here, and the second will be, I need to find anterior clinoid process, and on the cross section there is a Walker point. We're going to use that later. I will not trace the planum, but I will trace another structure for sagittal superimposition, and these are the greater wings of sphenoid. This would be the first and the second. And And another thing that I'm going to trace here is ethmoidal crest. So from here, something like this. And that's it. I don't need more. What I will do is I will put all those structures to one of existing layers, which is called stable structures, and there they are. Okay. Now I will continue to cranial-based superimposition. I'll save the result and create a superimposition. First I select the analysis from the beginning of the treatment, and then I will select the analysis or add the analysis from the end of the treatment. I will switch off all the structures except stable structures on both analyses. I will create a link and place the center of rotation on Walker point. Please note that one analysis is green and the other is red. So everything is on this one is green and everything on the other is red. And those colors can be seen here. And here I can change the color whenever I want. But I'm going to use the green one, which can be seen. Very nice. Now I will move this on top of each other. So it is there. And what I need to do is I need to do the rotation. And this will be done in a way that I will superimpose the stable structures, in this case ethmoidal crest. So the rotation is done, and I'm done with this superimposition. Oh, I can name it cranial base. Okay. The second would be mandibular superimposition. I'll create another link and place the point to the stable structure on the chin. This is a point of rotation. Let's place it one on top of each other, and then I'll do the rotation. So I need to align the alveolar mandibular canals one on top of each other. So something like this. And I will name this link MD mandibular something. And I'm done. And now I have Selanasion, ANS, NL, and so on, and I have cranial-based superimposition and mandibular superimposition. Of course, these structures do not mean a lot to me, and I will switch on the report layers and switch off the stable structures. By switching between these selections here, I can get what I want. The second way of superimposing would be that I don't use traced structures at all. So I will switch off these and try to do another link. But before I do that, I'm going to change the color of the upper radiograph to something, and I will make it a little bit transparent. So it's transparent, something like this. Okay, I'll create a link, and place a point of rotation to Walker point. So this would be cranial base superimposition, and I will place this to the same Walker point. I'll do that with transparency, so I have it here. Okay, and now I'm going to rotate so that structures will fit. So you can see its upper structure and transparent is transparent, and I will overlay stable structures one on top of each other, in this particular case to cerebral surfaces of the orbital part of the frontal bone. So this one's here, So I have here now cranial base superimposition, and I will do the same for mandibular superimposition. Okay, here is a point below the pogonion. I have to zoom in, something like this. And now I'm going to do the rotation. This can be particularly useful if there is no growth. So the patients without the growth, we don't need to do that. Something like this. I hope that I placed that correctly. Now I have here cranial base and cranial base in another way. It's not a big difference, and mandibular and mandibular. So it's quite about the same. And again, with layers, I switch on both report layers. If I don't want to have a green radiograph, I just change the transparency and the color, and I can also show radiographs without, picture without radiographs. Okay, additional tools that are used are coordinate system, and inside the assembly, inside that overlay, I can copy this coordinate system from the first analysis to the second analysis. So I go to that and I say, okay, copy to the second analysis, to the green one. And if I switch between superimposition links, you can see that everything changes, and you can place measurements. For example, what is the measurement between this and this? It is 2.4 degrees. And what we can also do is make some distance measurements. I switch on the points. It's a bit crowded, but we can say, okay, what is the distance between this glabella and approximate gonion? Okay, and this is in millimeters. This is something fictional, but we can do the measurements. And one more thing, I have a tool here called Delta Box, and I want to know what is the difference between both nasions here. So it's 2 millimeters, and we can do that for every point in the on the canvas, which is in both analyses. So this is something that I wanted to show, and we will conclude this webinar with some words, with some key points that I would like to tell to you. I want to stress 3 key points that are important for your orthodontic software in correlation to superimposing. First, AudaxCeph has tools for A, quick and easy superimposition, and B, tools for manually superimposing and evaluation of treatment of growth changes. Second, very important thing is technical support. Audax can and will help you also with experiences in for example, structural superimpositions, because we collect the knowledge from everywhere when we are in the contact with orthodontists, and we want to share this knowledge with you. The third thing, AudaxCeph is being developed all the time. New versions with cool functions will be available for your use. Let's talk about key points in more detail. We presented tools for automatic superimposition, vector exports, etc. Such superimpositions may not meet all your requests. From there, you can go in 2 directions, either to superimpose on other traced points and lines, or do a superimposition manually. Tools for evaluations are available so that you can prepare presentation in line with your wishes. We believe that technical support is the most important service to both customers who start with the software, so novice customers, novice users, or advanced users. We provide it through the remote access, which is both productive and also social. We set up our workspace in a way that we can productively help you regardless of the distance between us and regardless of the time zone. We use Skype, Click Meeting, Appearin, TeamViewer, ISL Lite, and other wonderful tools to be with you or at your office. We provide also self-instructing training toolkit, which is free, and we can also train you online, of course. Superimpositions are not done so frequently as analysis tracings, so somebody will need help, and Audax is here to help. We also provide guidelines, such as, for example, the ones for structural superimposition. Audax develops its orthodontic software suite all the time. This assures you that there will be new functionalities available, such as automatic tracing, quick support, issues solved, your suggestions accepted in future releases. If the software is being developed, there is someone you can talk to, someone who cares about the product. Look, AudaxCeph offers, for example, automatic tracing, for example, because we do the development, and the same with the other functionalities. I strongly encourage you to talk to us. Please feel free to place questions in the chat pane. I will give the word to Marco now, who will run the second part, actually that questions and answers session.